Not too long ago, I found myself standing at a crossroads in life. Picture this: a young dreamer with a head full of ambitions, fresh out of high school, with the world in front of me, facing a decision that would undoubtedly change the rest of my life. I'd gotten a secure job at Albany where I make airplanes. I've been working here 5 months now, and I have this compelling desire to throw it all away to pursue my passion of writing. In the meantime, I've been going back and forth, asking friends and family members for advice. I finally came up with a decision. But did I really have a decision in the first place? I'm sure you are familiar with Newton's laws of motion, laws which state how all objects can and cannot move. And these laws cannot be broken. These laws, as you know, are not the only laws. There's more laws that govern this universe, such as the law of gravity. These are inescapable laws that dictate how our world can and cannot work. They dictate everything, such as rolling a marble at another marble. The marble it hits is always going to move in the same direction as the first one, and the kinetic energy is passed on to the second one. This is declared by Newton's laws. Take these laws, and now let's say you can start your own universe without any life whatsoever. And in this universe, you can dictate the setup. You can dictate how the universe starts, the starting scenario for your universe. But however, the laws of this universe stay the same. You cannot change these laws. So you set up your universe and dictate all the starting events where everything starts, and eventually it will end. And you could start the same universe again, the same universe with the exact same setup and the exact same starting point. You can't change the laws. So the universe would end in the exact same way, playing out exactly the same way as the first run, because these laws dictate how the objects in the universe will play out. These laws only give one explicit action per object. So, you can play this universe again and again, over and over, but unless you change the setup of this universe, it will always end in the exact same way. A universe consisting of cause and effect. You may have noticed that I specified a universe without life. As soon as you add a person, they can decide on various actions to take, whether it be to walk north or south, east or west. And this would surely mix up the ending, wouldn't it? Well, the objects in the universe are bound by the laws of the universe, which explicitly dictate how each object will act, and every object in the universe is bound by these laws. And the human, being in this universe, is thereby an object in the universe. And so humans are subject to the same laws that govern the universe. The laws which dictate that the universe will end in the exact same way every single time, unless the setup of the universe is changed. This is determinism, the belief that every decision ever made was predetermined, and was simply an explicit cause from various past events, that everything would play out in the exact same way if our universe was set up the same way. In 1964, Hans Kornhuber and Lueder Dieck discovered an electrical potential of just a few microvolts visible in the brain just before someone flexed their finger, establishing a link with decision-making in the brain. They called this discovery Bereitschaft's potential, otherwise known as a readiness potential, showing the exact moment someone decided to flex their wrist or finger. This readiness potential was visible from about 550 milliseconds before the participant flexed their finger or wrist. 19 years later, neurophysiologist John Eccles hypothesized that the participants would become conscious of the intention to act before this readiness potential, believing that we were making the choice of all our actions. Neurologist Benjamin Libet decided to test Eccles' theory, and in 1983, they came up with an experiment to measure the time when the subject became consciously aware of the decision to move their finger. They tested this by creating a dot that circulated an oscilloscope. The subject was asked to note the position of the dot when they made the decision to flex their finger or wrist. Libet observed that the subject noted their decision to flex their finger or wrist 200 milliseconds before they did so. But the readiness potential appeared about 550 milliseconds to sometimes a whole second and a half before they flexed their finger or wrist. This readiness potential appeared in the brain 350 milliseconds before the participants were aware they made their decision, indicating that they weren't deciding to move and that they only thought they were, essentially disproving free will as a whole. This is truly mind-boggling and can be hard to wrap your head around. So let's look at this in a more conceivable way. Let's say Jim is deciding on where to go to college, a decision everyone is familiar with to some degree. Say Jim is deciding between Yale or Harvard. Each school has its pros and cons, but ultimately he has to make a choice. Say Jim decides to go to Yale. Well, he could have just as easily chosen Harvard, right? Let's see why he chose Yale. Jim lived in New Haven, Connecticut, the city that Yale presides in. He grew up there with his parents, brothers, and sisters, along with many fond memories of the city he grew up in. That is why he decided on Yale over Harvard. He was biased toward the city he spent his entire life in. Now, I'll ask again, he could have just as easily chosen Harvard, right? No. If he were ever going to choose Harvard, then his underlying reason would have to be changed. Say you change his relationship with his family, then surely he would have picked Harvard, right? Well, why did he have a good relationship with his family? Perhaps his father worked a full-time job to provide for his family, giving Jim a sense of respect for his father. His mother was a stay-at-home mom who looked after and nurtured Jim and his siblings. This established a sense of safety with his mother. And his siblings looked up to Jim as he was the oldest, and they often played together, giving Jim a sense of connection with his siblings. Those are the circumstances you now have to change in order to change Jim's relationship with his family. And you would have to take the same practice. Why did his father provide for their family? Why did his mother stay at home and nurture them? Why did he play with his siblings? Each scenario presents its own circumstances for being. You could keep going back, analyzing each situation to understand how you could change it. But every decision ever made had a circumstance for being, making you have to go all the way to the setup of the universe to change anything at all. And once you're finally able to change something, would it even be the same universe in the end? Would it be the same Jim or the same Harvard? Because that one change would spiral into a multitude of new events, changing seemingly everything about the whole scenario you set out to change in the first place. You can establish this line of thinking in virtually every decision you can ever make, even as what to eat for breakfast. Say you work a full-time job that pays relatively well, and before you go to bed for work the next morning, you decide to start making eggs for breakfast, as you are trying to eat healthy and increase muscle mass. Eggs are a healthy source of protein that will help you achieve those goals. So, you set your alarm a few minutes earlier and go to sleep. The next morning, you wake up late due to you accidentally setting your alarm to the PMs instead of AMs, and now you are in a rush for work. At the last minute, you decide to forego your plan of making eggs and get something on the way. After all, you have an abundance of money. While driving to work, you stop at a donut shop as it is the most convenient place to stop. You eat the donut saying it's better than nothing and not giving another thought about it. Unfortunately, because of the sugar from this donut, it spikes your dopamine, rewarding you for waking up late, stopping at the donut shop, and eating that donut. That night, you forget to set your alarm clock as you were in such a rush that morning that you forgot why you woke up late in the first place. And the next day plays out the same. The same outside circumstances force you to choose to eat that donut. And after a while of unfortunate circumstances, you end up going to that same donut shop more often than not, as each time you are rewarded for doing so. Eventually, this becomes habit, and as 40% of our actions are habit, You become a slave to eating a sugary donut every day for breakfast, pushing you further and further from your original goal, making you wonder if you really had a say in the matter to begin with. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, we are creatures of habit, but it was the rewarding factor of the sugar in the donut that caused us to start down our path in the first place. So rather, we are creatures of reward. And so, if we're merely acting based upon outside circumstances and habit that is based on how we are rewarded due to particular situations, then do we really have a choice? And if we don't have a choice and are merely acting off instinct, then what differs us from any other animal? Of course, our distinct difference is our inherent ability to learn. All animals learn to some capacity, but the human brain is at a distinct advantage with a disproportionately large cerebral cortex, accounting for over 80% of our total brain mass, allowing humans to acquire knowledge better than any other animal. So, let's put a monkey into the previous scenario. The monkey is eating donuts for breakfast every day because of the reward it gets from it, and now it has become a habit. The monkey may start to gain weight and overall not be as healthy, but it cannot understand why. So, it will keep eating the donuts because it is rewarding, thus becoming less and less healthy until its inevitable death. You may be addicted to the donuts, and once you start to gain weight and lose health, you at least can understand why. You, unlike the monkey, understand that it is your morning donut that is causing this undesirable change. And from understanding that, you can go on to break your habit and become healthy again. While the monkey in this scenario will never be able to understand that donut is the cause of his unhealthiness and will be forever a slave to the donut's rewarding nature. And that's the lesson to be learned. Our actions are based upon our genetics, experiences, and outside circumstances. So we must change our experiences. And how do we do that? Through knowledge. We can continually learn, whether it be from our past experiences or the research we do. And as we learn, that knowledge seeps into our subconscious, and soon enough, we'll start to pull from that pool of knowledge when we make a decision. Because we know we don't have a choice, you can use that to your benefit and learn more, study more, feel that knowledge in your brain that most other animals don't have. Might as well use our one and only advantage. If you like what you saw, please consider liking and subscribing. It would definitely help us out. And feel free to check out our podcast on Spotify. Link is in the description. And until next time, we are extensions of the universe.